Most people would break down if they heard their mother just died. But me? I felt a chill crawl down my spine. I knew my brother had just made a fatal mistake, and I had less than 24 hours to save her before he cremated. The evidence stopped my phone. Buzzed at 6:45 a.m. I was standing by the window, staring at the fog rolling over Lake Michigan. The caller ID said, Ryan. My little brother. The guy I hadn't spoken to in 3 weeks. I picked up. His voice sounded fake sad, but his breathing was shallow, like someone about to get caught red-handed. Mike, I have bad news. Mom's gone. She passed last night, totally peaceful, at Lakeside Manor. I've already scheduled the cremation for tomorrow morning so she can finally rest. I gripped my coffee mug until my knuckles turned white. My heart was thumping against my ribs, not from grief, but from pure, cold certainty. He was trying to kill her for the money. What? When? I just saw her yesterday afternoon. The funeral is next weekend, he snapped, his tone switching to business mode. It was brutal. I've handled all the paperwork. Oh, and one more thing, Michael, Ryan continued, his voice now like cold steel. Her will is crystal clear. Everything, the Evanston house, the Wisconsin cabin, the investment funds, it all goes to me. You're not in it. Don't even think about fighting this. It's a waste of time. Before he could hang up, I hit the record button on my iPhone. Thank God Illinois is a one-party consent state. My lawyer, Emily, told me to record every single word out of his mouth. Click, he hung up. I stood there in my kitchen, staring at my phone in total shock that my mom was gone. Just like that. Ryan's coldness felt like a scalpel cutting through my memories. I remembered the hunger in his eyes the last time we fought over the family books. A guy drowning in crypto debt, like Ryan would do anything to stop a foreclosure. But what I didn't know then was that he didn't just owe the bank. He owed people who don't offer forgiveness. And they were getting close. Real close. I didn't have time to cry. I needed my daughter. Sophie, she's got that investigative journalist blood in her, and I needed to get to Lakeside Manor, now. My mom, Margaret Thompson, was 83. She was a former high school principal and sharp as a tack. She was totally independent until about 8 months ago. That's when Ryan convinced her to sign a power of attorney so he could manage things. She hesitated, but she trusted him. Big mistake. Almost immediately, she was diagnosed with severe cognitive decline and locked away in Lakeside Manor. She became a ghost, staring at walls, recognizing no one. Every time I visited, I'd sit there telling her about Sophie or my medical volunteer work. She just sat there like a statue until one afternoon. Ryan turned his back to take a call. Suddenly, Mom's hand clamped onto mine, hard. She didn't look at me, but her fingertips started tapping a rhythm on my skin. Savi, Morse code. It was a secret game she taught me when I was a kid. It lasted 1 second. Then she went back to being a statue the moment Ryan turned around. My heart nearly stopped. She wasn't crazy. She was a prisoner in her own body, and she was begging for help. Ryan barely visited. When he did, he was always checking his watch, always in a rush. Now standing in my cold kitchen, my mind was racing. Why did he call so early? Why did he sound like he was racing against a clock? I couldn't sit still. I bolted to my car and floored it toward the facility. I didn't call. I just drove, my heart hammering as light snow began to fall. Around 7:30 a.m., I pulled over about 2 miles from the nursing home. I needed to breathe. I needed to think. Finally, I grabbed my phone. Lakeside Manor, how can I help you? The morning nurse asked. I'm calling about my mother, Margaret Thompson, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I just got word she passed away last night. There was a long silence. I could hear the pulse thudding in my ears. I'm so sorry, Mr. Thompson, but I don't see a record of that. Let me go check her room personally. A few minutes later, she came back, sounding totally confused. "Sir, your mother is perfectly fine. She's sitting in her chair. She just finished breakfast. Is there some kind of mistake?" I slumped into my seat, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. "Do me a favor. Do not tell anyone I called. Especially not my brother Ryan. I'm coming in, right now." I reached the facility and sprinted to my mother's room. My lungs were burning as I burst through the door, and my heart nearly stopped. There she was, sitting by the window, looking frail and exhausted, but very much alive. I hung up on Ryan and immediately called Sophie. She picked up on the third ring, her voice thick with sleep. "Dad, it's not even 5 a.m. in Seattle. What's wrong?" "Your Uncle Ryan just told me Grandma died." "But it's a lie, Sophie. She's alive. I think he's trying to fake her death, to liquidate her entire estate. My gut tells me it's to pay off his debts, maybe to the bank, or even to some shady investors he's been dealing with." "What?" There was a heavy silence, then her tone turned to ice. "Dad, that's straight up fraud and elder abuse. I'm starting a deep dive into his shell companies right now. I don't know the full scale yet, but I have to move fast. I'm at the nursing home now. We can't wait for some fake funeral next week." I spent the rest of the morning burning up the phone lines. First call, Emily Rodriguez, my longtime attorney. Her voice went grave the second I finished. "Michael, if Ryan is weaponizing that power of attorney, we need ironclad proof. You have to be surgical about this." Next, I reached out to Marcus. Vance, a financial investigator in Chicago, who's known for being a shark. He met me late that afternoon. He was in his 50s, wiry, with cold blue eyes that had seen every scam in the book. "When did your brother take the reins?" Marcus asked, his fountain pen tapping a rhythmic beat on a leather notebook. 8 months ago, I said. Right after Mom was suddenly diagnosed with early-onset dementia. Before that, she was the sharpest person I knew. I leaned in. She was leading book clubs at the library, driving herself to charity events. Then, in a heartbeat, she supposedly couldn't tell day from night. Marcus nodded slowly. "I've seen this movie a dozen times. Give me 2 days. I'm going to strip search every transaction in your mother's accounts." That night I drove back to Lakeside Manor unannounced. When I pushed the door open, Mom was sitting in her usual armchair, watching the Chicago streetlights flicker through the falling snow. Her white hair had thinned out, and the exhaustion was etched deep into her face, but tonight, the air felt different. Her eyes seemed less cloudy, like her consciousness was fighting its way back to the surface. "Mom," I whispered, pulling a chair close. She turned her head slowly, those old brown eyes boring into mine. Something flickered their recognition. Or was I just hallucinating out of hope? "It's Michael. Your son." Her lips trembled, her jaw moving as if trying to force out a sound. But right then, a nurse pushed the door open to check her vitals, and the moment shattered. I drove home through the snow, my nerves stretched to the breaking point. What was Ryan's play? Stage a fake funeral to make her disappear, then quietly bleed the estate dry once everyone accepted she was gone? It was insane. It was brilliant. It was evil. Early the next morning, Marcus called. "Michael, take a deep breath before I start." I sat frozen at my kitchen table, the phone pressed to my ear. "Your brother has been busy. In the last 3 quarters, he siphoned over $310,000 from your mother's savings. He transferred the Wisconsin cabin to an LLC based in Delaware. That I'm still untangling. He's drowning in credit card debt." "And Michael?" "Dr. Whitmore, the guy who signed off on your mom's condition, was Ryan's college roommate. They go back 30 years. A sharp pain shot from my stomach to my chest, like a cold hand was twisting my insides. I had to hunch over, bracing myself against the table. My breath came in short, shallow gasps. It was a setup. All of it. They were turning my mother into a vegetable using high-dose sedatives. This isn't a property dispute anymore, I hissed through gritted teeth. This is attempted murder. We have to bring this into the light, Marcus said. I'll get the medical records, even if it takes time. In the meantime, get back there. Watch every move they make. Record everything. Illinois law says you're good. As long as you're part of the conversation. I couldn't wait as long as Marcus wanted. That afternoon, I was back at Lakeside Manor with my phone recording in my pocket. But her room was empty. A cleaning lady I'd never seen before was scrubbing. The floors, where's my mother? I asked, my heart hammering against my ribs. Oh, Mr. Thompson, the younger one, took her out for a walk. Said she needed some fresh air. Cold sweat broke out across my back, soaking through my shirt. My body started to shake, not because of the Chicago winter, but because of a primal instinct screaming in my ear. Danger. She's in danger. When did they leave? I barked. About an hour ago, the staffer replied. I sprinted to the parking lot. Empty. Ryan's black sedan was gone, leaving nothing but tire tracks in the slush. I called him 6 times. 6 times it went straight to voicemail. 2.5 hours later, they finally rolled back in. Ryan was practically dragging Mom out of the car. She looked like a ghost stumbling, frail, completely spent. Ryan saw me waiting and didn't even bother to hide the smirk on his face. Michael, still lurking around? Don't you have a life? You told me she died yesterday, Ryan. So who the hell is standing right there? He let out this cold, shameless laugh. Oh, you're just being sensitive. It was a little misunderstanding. Mom took a turn for the worse yesterday, and I panicked. You know how dementia is, nobody knows what's going on half the time. Where did you take her all afternoon? She needed some fresh air. The room was stuffy. We just went for a walk. A walk? Look at her. She can't even stand on her own 2 feet. Nuff, Michael. His voice dropped an octave, dripping with a threat. I'm the legal POA. Her medical decisions are mine, not yours. You don't like it? Call a lawyer. Get out of my face. He brushed past me, shoving Mom toward her room. Through the cracked door, I saw him lean in and whisper something right into her ear. Then he turned around and walked out, acting like I didn't even exist. I was about to head to my car when my pocket buzzed. No caller ID. My gut told me to pick up. Hello? Silence for a beat. Then a whisper, weak but crystal clear. Michael. My heart stopped. No way. Mom was right there in that room, and this call? Who is this? It's Mom, honey. Listen to me. We don't have much time. Don't say a word. Just come back to the room as soon as Ryan leaves. I need you, Michael. I burst into the room. She was sitting there again, motionless, staring out at the snow. I grabbed her cold hands, my lips trembling, ready to scream 1,000 questions. But she just turned her head, her eyes still clouded and dull. I sat there, desperate, babbling about Sophie and my work, just trying to get a reaction. Nothing for 2 minutes. I was about to give up and walk out. Then slowly she squeezed my hand. She didn't say a word. Her face stayed as blank as a mannequin's, but then, hidden under the folds of her scarf, she grabbed my hand and flipped it over. Using her bony index finger, she started to draw. And then a tiny heart. My pupils dilated. That was our secret. Code, the one she used to calm me down when I had nightmares as a kid. She gave me a tiny, almost invisible wink, so fast the security cameras couldn't have caught it, then went back to being a vegetable. The second someone walked past the hallway. She leaned in, her lips barely moving. Be quiet. Ryan just hid cameras in the corners. I'm fine. I'm playing a part to stay alive. The call cut off. I stood frozen in the empty parking lot, snow piling up on my shoulders. I stared at my phone. Like it was an alien artifact. This was impossible. Mom couldn't have called me. For months, she'd been babbling nonsense. But that voice, even as a raspy whisper, had the sharp authority. of the woman who ran a high school for 30 years. I sat in my car, lights off, watching Lakeside Manor until 10:30 p.m. Ryan's car had been gone for hours. The night shift was on, and the staff was thin. I used a side door code I remembered and slipped into Mom's room. The lights were dimmed low. When I walked in, she was sitting bolt upright in bed. In the soft glow of the nightlight, I saw her eyes. They weren't empty anymore. They were sharp, focused, and 100% there. "Close the door, son," she said. Her voice was normal. No mumbling. No fog. Just the powerful, commanding voice of Margaret Thompson. I shut the door, my hands shaking uncontrollably. "Mom, what is happening?" "Sit down, Michael. We need to talk, and we don't have much time." I sat, completely stunned. "Are you okay? What's going on?" The mother I thought I'd lost to the fog of dementia suddenly smiled at me. It was that same sharp, witty smile I saw as a kid whenever she caught me and Ryan sneaking cookies before dinner. "I'm fine, Michael. I've been fine this whole time." "But the dementia, the doctor's diagnosis. You didn't even recognize me. Are you telling me you've been faking it?" My world was spinning. "You're acting?" She reached out and took my hand. Her grip was firm, steady, nothing like the weak, trembling hands I'd been holding for months. I remembered then. Back when she was a principal, she was always the first to bring new tech into the school. She never backed down from a challenge, whether it was learning the first computers or joining online forums. This elaborate plan, it was just one more lesson she'd carefully prepared. A final lecture for her son on the price of a soul. "Michael, I'm 83 years old. I've spent a lot of time thinking about death and what I'll leave behind. But I realized I needed to know the truth first. I needed to know which of my sons would actually care for me out of love, not for an inheritance or the numbers in a bank account." Her voice dropped, carrying the heavy sadness of a lifelong teacher. "All my life, I taught my students about ethics, honesty, and responsibility. My greatest fear was that my own son hadn't absorbed those lessons. I had to see for myself." "So, you faked the dementia? Just to test us?" "When Ryan convinced me to sign that power of attorney, I sensed an opportunity," she said. I agreed, but for 3 months before that, I was working in the shadows with Emily Rodriguez, a private lawyer Ryan knew nothing about. I also consulted a neurologist I trusted. He helped me understand how to safely mimic symptoms and how to fail cognitive tests without actually harming my health. It was a reckless gamble, but it was one I had to take. Emily helped me move almost everything, 87% of the Evanston house, a $1.2 million stock portfolio, and the Wisconsin cabin into an irrevocable asset protection trust 6 weeks. Before I handed Ryan the POA, I only left about $380,000 in the bank and savings accounts. It was enough to make Ryan think he had the whole pie, but small enough that I could watch him bleed it dry without losing sleep. I learned how to use an Apple Watch from those AARP tech classes for seniors. I set it to auto-record whenever it recognized Ryan's voice using AI, and I hid an iPad mini in my dresser to track my bank accounts in real time. I turned this room into a recording studio for evidence, she said, with the pride of a teacher who had just finished her most difficult lesson. I planned all of this before I ever stepped foot in this facility. I even hired Marcus Vance, that investigator. You found to set up automated alerts for every suspicious transaction. I couldn't even process what I was hearing. "Mom, why didn't you tell me?" Her eyes grew soft and weary. "Because I had to test both of you. I needed to see who would visit when I had nothing left to give. Who would sit by me even when I couldn't. Remember their name, and Michael. You came 3 times a week. You sat there and told me everything, even when I acted like I didn't know who you were." Tears started streaming down my face. "Of course I came. You're my mother." "I know that now," she whispered. "But Ryan, He failed miserably, Michael. Worse than I ever feared. My Apple Watch and that iPad caught everything. Every time he pressured me to sign papers, every time he flew into a rage because I played. Confused, I saw every penny of that $310,000 he stole. I let him dig his own grave. Marcus called me later with even more dirt. His team discovered Ryan was prepping a petition for temporary guardianship through the courts using fake medical reports. He'd even hired someone to steal the original medical files to back up his lies. And his wife, Lisa? She'd been laundering money for Ryan's shady deals through her company accounts without even realizing the trail she was leaving. Mom, he told me you were dead. He's planning a funeral for this Friday. She nodded, eerily calm. I know. He told me during our walk today. He said I was going to have an accident, that I was going to drift away peacefully. As a doctor, the pieces clicked into a damning clinical picture. Her pupils were constricted to pinpoints. A subtle pill-rolling tremor had appeared in her fingers. Most tellingly, the heart rate charts from her Apple Watch were a textbook case of chemical restraint. Sharp spikes of anxiety whenever Ryan arrived, followed by a sudden, precipitous drop, the signature of a fast-acting sedative taking. Hold. I snapped photos of the charts on her iPad. This was the smoking gun. He wanted me to sign over the Evanston house first, but I faked a psychotic break to stop him. He's running out of time, and he knows it. This is insane and dangerous. We have to call the cops right now. Not yet. I said, I need more. The next morning I called Sophie. I need the origin of those shell companies Ryan's using to flip the assets. I'm going to confront his pet doctor. That afternoon, I walked into Dr. Whitmore's office. I didn't play nice. I threw the Apple Watch data on his desk and told him I'd go straight to the Illinois Medical Board if he didn't start talking. He turned white as a sheet. Under the pressure, he folded and confessed to everything. Not yet. Emily Rodriguez is your lawyer too, right? She's been coordinating with me for the past month. They formed the ultimate justice team, Michael. Handled the medical, Sophie managed the investigation and media, and Margaret was the master strategist. Between the Ring security system at the Evanston house and the heart rate data from the Apple Watch, any guardianship petition Ryan filed was going to be dead on arrival. We have a plan, Michael, but I need you to trust me. Can you do that? I squeezed her hand tight. Always, Mom. For the next 48 hours, we went into overdrive. Emily reached out to the Chicago PD in secret. They agreed to let Mom's play continue so we could catch Ryan red-handed with ironclad evidence. We rigged her room with pinhole cameras, the kind that look like shirt buttons, and cinched them with the Evanston security grid. We even got a few trusted staff members on the inside to play ball. And Mom? She stayed in character. She played the fading, confused patient every time Ryan walked through that door. He showed up twice more. The first time, he tried to force her to sign over the Evanston house. She just drew illegible scribbles, acting like she didn't understand. English. Ryan's face turned purple, his teeth gritted. Sign it clearly, Mom. I'm trying to save what's left of your money. The second time was Thursday night. He brought a syringe. I watched the hidden camera footage later, and my stomach turned with pure disgust. Ryan told her it was a brain booster vitamin. But there was a split second, I saw it clear as day on the feed, where he hesitated. He whispered, I'm sorry, but I don't have a choice, before pushing the plunger. Lab results from a saliva swab later proved it was a massive dose of a potent antipsychotic used for schizophrenia. A dose big enough to knock a grown man sideways for 2 days. Mom was smart. She faked the swallow but hid the pill under her tongue. Tomorrow, Ryan said, stroking her hair with fake affection. Tomorrow you'll finally get some rest, Mom. No more pain. No more worry. Friday morning, the day of the funeral, arrived. Ryan went all out at Highland Park Funeral Home, one of the swankiest spots in the Chicago suburbs. He'd blasted the obituary everywhere. Relatives I hadn't seen in a decade were calling to offer condolences. I played the part of the grieving son perfectly. Yes, the viewing starts at 2 p.m. It was just so sudden. The chapel was packed. Ryan spared no expense. Walls of fresh lily, a massive portrait of Mom from her days as principal right at the center. He even hired a professional writer for a flowery eulogy about a devoted mother who lost her long battle with illness. I sat in the front row with Sophie, who had caught the first flight out of Seattle that morning. Before the service started, Sophie leaned in. "Dad, I found out Ryan hired security to jam the Wi-Fi signal here." But I slipped into the tech booth and found a back door in the slideshow software. He accidentally left his Google Slides admin account logged in. "I can take over the screen whenever we're ready." I nodded, holding her hand. Ryan sat across the aisle with Lisa and their 2 kids. He wore the perfect mask of sorrow. Lisa was next to him in a formal black dress, constantly touching his arm to comfort him. But I saw the truth in her eyes. She was terrified, darting her gaze around the room. The kids, their 12-year-old boy and 9-year-old girl, were sobbing. They genuinely loved their grandma. She'd taught them how to bake Christmas cookies every year. As Ryan stood up to speak, Lisa pulled out her phone and started typing a message to an unsaved number. I couldn't read it, but she deleted it instantly and glanced at Ryan with pure fear. Later, I found out she was trying to warn me. She had typed, "Michael, be careful. Ryan has the guardianship papers ready to seize everything if..." But Ryan had turned around right then, snapping at her. "What are you doing?" She panicked, shut the screen and mumbled, Just checking on the kids." Sophie's phone buzzed in her pocket. She looked down a text from an unknown number. "Michael, be careful. Ryan has..." Then it was deleted. Sophie frowned, looking over at Lisa, who was trembling, her face pale as Ryan whispered a threat in her ear. "Don't do anything stupid." In that moment, I realized Lisa wasn't a willing partner. She was a victim too. Ryan was manipulating her with fear and blind loyalty. Exactly at 2 p.m., Ryan stood up and walked to the podium. He adjusted the mic, cleared his throat, and began the eulogy with a fake, shaky voice. "We are gathered here today to remember Margaret Thompson, a remarkable woman born on September 18, 1942, who left us on January 10, 2026, for 33 years. She was an elite educator, shaping thousands of souls right here in Chicago." Ryan paused, dabbing his eyes with the tissue. I watched closely, not a single tear. "In her final months, Mom placed her total trust in me. She told me." His voice broke with theatrical precision. That I was the son she was most proud of. The only one she trusted to manage her legacy. She was disappointed. He looked toward me with a mask of fake agony. Michael walked away from a high-paying surgical career to be a volunteer, leaving him unable to care for her properly. The room erupted in whispers. A distant cousin shouted, "Why isn't Michael speaking?" Another replied, "Maybe he's too distraught." But I heard the real poison spreading. Maybe he really wasn't the favorite. Maybe Ryan's right. Sophie gripped my hand so hard her knuckles turned white. "Patience," I whispered. "We're about to make him pay." Ryan leaned into the mic, his voice growing stronger. "Mom wanted me to inherit the Evanston house, the cabin, and every investment because she knew I'd protect this family's future. It's a heavy burden, but I won't let her down." The second he finished, I stood up. 100 pairs of eyes locked onto me. "Quite a story, Ryan," I said, my voice booming through the chapel. "You say you cared for her every second. So why don't you tell everyone where I'm actually is right now?" The room went dead silent. Ryan turned pale. "Michael, sit down. This isn't the time. I'm asking you one last time. Where's the body, Ryan? Where is she?" "She's being cremated, according to her wishes." We talked about this. Ryan screamed, his anger barely covering his panic. Really? Because I just called the Central Crematory. They have no record of a Margaret Thompson. Where are you hiding her? Lisa gasped, grabbing her husband's arm. Ryan, what is he talking about? Where's Mom? At that exact moment, the giant screen behind Ryan flickered. The family slideshow vanished. In its place was a live video feed. My mother was sitting in the back of a moving SUV, blue and red police lights flashing through the window behind her. She looked straight into the lens, her voice sharp and commanding over the chapel speakers. Hello, everyone. I'm Margaret Thompson, the woman my son just claimed was dead. Ryan, don't bother looking for me at the crematory. I'm in a Chicago PD cruiser, and I'll be at the front doors of this funeral home in exactly 2 minutes to set the record straight. The room exploded. Ryan spun around, saw his dead mother on the screen, and his legs simply gave out. He collapsed next to the podium. No. Turn it off. Turn it off now, he shrieked. Sophie looked up from the front row and smiled her thumb, still hovering over the control app on her phone. Then, the heavy oak doors at the back of the chapel swung open. Every single guest turned around. Framed in the doorway was my mother, the woman Ryan had just eulogized. She walked slowly with a walker, but her back was straight, her head held high, and her eyes were as sharp as a judge delivering a sentence. Behind her stood 2 uniformed Chicago police officers and Emily Rodriguez, carrying a briefcase stuffed with evidence. I felt tears prick my eyes, not from sadness, but from pure, unadulterated pride. That was my mother, strong, unyielding. Sophie whispered, Grandma is a total badass, Dad. Ryan sat on the floor, mouth agape, skin the color of ash. His children stared at their grandmother, then at their father, totally lost. His 9-year-old daughter cried out, Grandma, you're alive, and ran to hug her. His son turned to Ryan, eyes red. Why did you say she was dead, Dad? The room was in chaos. People were standing on chairs, screaming. My mother marched down the center aisle. When she reached Ryan, she stopped. Hello, son, she said, her voice echoing, I'm not dead. But your greed just murdered your inheritance. Ryan stammered like a fish out of water. Mom. You're confused. You're sick. There's been a mistake. I'm not confused, Ryan. I've recorded every single second of the last 8 months. Every threat, every theft, every time you tried to force my hand, and every time you drugged me to turn me into a vegetable. She turned to the crowd. Some were crying, some were in shock. I'm so sorry you had to see this, she said. But I had to know the truth. I had to see what my son would do when he thought I was helpless, and what I saw broke my heart. An officer stepped forward. Ryan Thompson, you're under arrest for elder abuse, grand theft over $50,000, document fraud, and conspiracy to commit probate fraud. You have the right to remain silent. Ryan tried to bolt. He actually attempted to shove the officer aside and make a run for the door. But 3 steps later, he was tackled and cuffed behind his back. His 2 kids started screaming. Lisa stood, frozen, her face like a stone mask of horror. As he was being led away, Ryan shrieked at Mom, I'm your son. You can't do this to me. I needed that money. Mom watched his back as he was dragged out, tears streaming down her face. But her voice stayed rock solid. You were my son. But you stopped being my child the second you decided my life was worth less than the balance in your bank account. The legal battle dragged on for months. Ryan tried to fight it at first, claiming Mom was truly incapacitated and he was just trying to help. But the evidence from the Apple Watch and the hidden cameras was too overwhelming to deny. The footage of him pressuring her, the bone-chilling audio of his threats, and the bank records exposing the asset stripping were the final nails in his coffin. But the smoking gun was the lab results from Margaret's saliva. Her sedative levels were 4 times the safety limit, enough to kill a frail, elderly person. Dr. Whitmore, after being offered immunity in exchange for his testimony, admitted to the whole thing. He confessed that Ryan had pressured him into prescribing high-dose, unnecessary sedatives. In the end, Ryan was forced to take a plea deal. He was sentenced to 7 years in an Illinois state prison and ordered to pay back every cent of the $310,000 he stole, plus a $60,000 fine. He permanently lost his investment licenses. Lisa filed for divorce immediately after and won full custody of the kids. The children were deeply scarred, but Sophie and I stayed by their side, trying to be the emotional anchor they needed. Dr. Whitmore had his medical license permanently revoked by the Illinois Medical Board for reckless prescribing without ever conducting a physical exam. As for Mom, she moved into a high-end, cozy apartment near my place in Evanston. She didn't want the headache of maintaining the big house or the vacation properties anymore. She just wanted to be close to me and near Sophie whenever she visited. We made it a habit to have dinner together twice a week. Mom even started volunteering. Again, this time at a senior rights center, using her own story to help others recognize the signs of hidden abuse. But every victory has its price. After Ryan was sentenced, my 2 grandkids, Ryan's son and daughter, completely cut ties with their grandmother. The 12-year-old boy wrote a letter to Margaret. "Grandma, I hate you. At school, everyone calls my dad a thief who robbed his own mother. I had to change schools. You turned my dad into a criminal. I'll never forgive you." One night I found Mom sitting in her living room, clutching a faded photo of the grandkids when they were little, tears silently falling. She whispered, "Michael, do you think ... I was too cruel? I could have handled it privately, called the police first, instead of exposing him at the funeral. Maybe then, the kids wouldn't have to carry this shame." I didn't know how to answer. Justice was served, but it left deep scars on the innocent. We used a portion of the recovered funds to launch the Margaret Thompson Senior Safeguard Fund. The foundation provides legal counsel for seniors, fighting financial fraud, and funds educational programs on the responsibilities of being a power of attorney. She even partnered with an ARP, appeared on Sophie's podcast, and worked with her daughter to develop the ElderShield app to help American seniors monitor their health and finances. The app triggers automatic alerts for unusual transactions and connects users directly with specialized attorneys. About a year after the storm, Mom and I were sitting on the porch, watching another round of snow blanket Chicago. She pulled a small gift box from her coat pocket. Inside was an old, discolored photo. Ryan at 7 years old, hugging her tight with a beaming smile. She brushed her thumb over the picture, her voice trembling. "Do you think, years from now, when Ryan gets out, I should give him a second chance? Or has the greed already eaten away whatever was left of the son I loved?" I stayed silent for a moment, looking out at Lake Michigan, the same place Ryan and I used to go fishing as kids. "I don't know, Mom," I admitted honestly. "You taught me that forgiveness is a strength, but you also taught me that boundaries are necessary. If Ryan is truly repentant, if he takes responsibility and tries to make it right, not because he wants a handout, but because he's actually changed, then maybe. But if he only wants back in for the money, then your boundary has to stay firm." Mom nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face. "You're right. I love Ryan, but I can't let that love turn me into a victim again." I pulled her into a tight hug. "Whatever you decide, I'm with you. You taught me that love doesn't mean accepting every behavior true. Love sometimes means saying no to protect both sides." She wrapped herself in a thick wool blanket, her hands pressed against a steaming mug of ginger tea. "Do you ever regret it?" I asked softly. "The way you tested us?" She was silent for a long time, watching the snowflakes dance in the streetlights. "I regret that it was necessary. It breaks my heart that my own son was capable of such things. But Michael, I don't regret finding out the truth. I had to know who would love me when I had nothing left to give. She smiled, reaching out to squeeze my hand. You showed me everything I needed to see. You passed the test not just because you visited, though that was precious, but because even when you thought I was gone, even when you thought there was no inheritance left, you fought for what was right. You didn't let Ryan get away with it. You protected me when I was playing the part of someone who couldn't protect herself. Her voice grew warm but heavy with authority. That's the meaning of family. Real family isn't about blood, Michael. It's about love, choices, and showing up when it counts. Ryan carries my blood, but he stopped being family the second he treated my life like an asset to be liquidated. We fell into a comfortable silence. Inside the house, I heard a ping a message. Maybe Sophie calling from Seattle for our weekend video chat, or Emily with an update on the foundation. Life was moving on. Mom turned to me, her eyes as sharp as ever. You know the saddest part? If Ryan had just opened up, if he'd been honest about his financial mess, I would have helped. Not by enabling him, but I wouldn't have abandoned him. Instead, he chose to steal. He chose to treat me like I was already dead. And that choice cost him everything. I didn't know what to say, so I just held her hand. This extraordinary woman had taught me more about strength and dignity in the last year than in all the years before. She survived her own son's betrayal, orchestrated her own rescue, and came out of it with the will to help others. That's the truth about family. It's not about legacies or bank accounts. It's about being there. It's about fighting for the right thing, even when it means standing against your own flesh and blood. Ryan chose greed over kin, deception over integrity, and now he's paying the price, not just with prison time, but with the contempt of his own children and the loss of a mother's love. As for me, I received something far more valuable than an inheritance. I got more years with the real version of my mother years, where we can laugh and heal. I have the peace of mind knowing that when I was tested, I did the right thing. And I have the chance to be part of something bigger, helping other families avoid the nightmare we lived through. Betrayal can't be excused by bloodlines. Real family is where the vulnerable are protected. And sometimes, the bravest thing an 83-year-old woman can do is pretend to be helpless, just to find the person who will actually hold her hand when there's nothing left to gain. That's the lesson I learned from Margaret Thompson, my mother, my hero. The woman who taught me that dignity is worth more than dollars, and that real love shows up even when there's nothing in it for them. If you were Margaret, would you have the guts to expose your own son in front of the whole family to protect yourself, even if it meant losing your grandkids? Drop a comment. Forgive if you believe in second chances, or never if some wounds just run too deep. And tag that one person you care about most with the words, "Thanks for being there when I had nothing." Share this if it made you rethink what family really means. Because family isn't just blood, it's the people who hold on tight when you've got nothing left. If this story hit home, hit that subscribe button and join us for more raw, real stories like this one.